Welcome, everybody, to the latest edition of the Western Canada HubSpot user group. We're so happy for you to join us here this morning. Today's topic is how to set your users up for success and increase adoption. So before I dive in deep, I just want to give you guys a quick heads up. The session is being recorded, and we will be sending that out to all registrants and attendees, so no worries on that front. I also just wanted to let you know who's going to be presenting today. I am Cody Pearson, and I am kind of the lead of the Western Canada HubSpot user group. But today you're going to be hearing from a pair of amazing experts. The first is Lisa Latour, who is the second half of Hubcap Solutions, and she's going to be taking you through all the tactics and features to help you set your users up for success and increase adoption. And we also have Julie Lugton, who is a senior customer onboarding specialist from HubSpot. And we could not be more happy to have her with us today. She's going to be running Copilot with Lisa. And then last but not least, we do have a pair of wonderful ASL interpreters here with us today. And just for anybody that wants to feature them a little bit more prominently, if you look down the sidebar of the presentation, you'll see all of the individual faces, and each one has the option to pop them out and enlarge them. So you can feel free to make any person you need to bigger, so you can keep a closer eye on them throughout the presentation. Now, I will be monitoring the chat, so if you have any questions, comments, things you want us to dive a little bit deeper into, don't hesitate, or technical issues, just let me know and I'll jump on those as soon as possible. And finally, I'm going to take a moment to introduce Hubcap Solutions, which is a two-person operation. Me and Lisa, we are the two halves of Hubcap Solutions, and we are a HubSpot solutions provider based in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. The short answer is that everything from helping you pick picking the amount of HubSpot that's right for your organization, helping you get a control of a HubSpot account that might be a little bit, out of control, as it were, or if you just have some technical questions that you want to ask a HubSpot expert, we are here for you, and we would love to connect after the session. So thank you again so much for taking the time to join us, and I am going to hand it over to our main set of presenters, Lisa and Julie.
All right, welcome everybody. So we're talking about this today because HubSpot has come out with new features that make the user interface more customizable. So it's a good opportunity for organizations to reassess and overhaul their user interface to support their users. And like Cody said, we have Julie here from HubSpot to demo some of these cool new features. So today we're going to start with an introduction to cover general resources and strategies for admins. Then we're going to look at some cool new custom property types and upgrades that may have snuck into your HubSpot portal without you noticing. And finally, we'll talk about the look of HubSpot, the main CRM part that your users interact with daily, and how to customize that. I will warn you that when I put this presentation together, I noticed that a lot of things that we're showing are only available on the Pro or higher tier, especially in the custom properties section, but there's still a lot of good stuff at the free tier, especially in customizing the look of HubSpot. I have called out tier limitations in the presentation, but I just wanted to let you know ahead of time. All right, so one thing that I have learned, especially in the early stages of my career as a HubSpot consultant, is that no matter how kind of elegant and clever and useful a thing that I have built in HubSpot is, if the users don't actually use it, then it really doesn't matter at all, which was very sad for me in the beginning. So user adoption is the most important step in anything that I build. And there's kind of a carrot and a stick approach to user adoption. You want to present an easy, valuable experience as the carrot of making their jobs easier. And without that, you'll have to solely rely on the stick of constantly nagging your users to adopt the changes. And to be honest, you'll probably need a little bit of nagging, even with a perfect user experience. So in this hug, I want to show you some new features in HubSpot that can help you improve the user experience and provide more value to your users, which will hopefully help your team love and adopt HubSpot with less nagging. So I want to start by making sure that you're all aware of some resources that admins have. And the first is community posts. If you have something that you're trying to do and can't figure out, chances are somebody has already asked how to do it in the HubSpot community, and somebody else, probably Karsten, the really helpful German man who has great replies to a ton of posts, has provided an answer. So try Googling it to find a community post if you're stuck on something. If you can't find what you're looking for in the community, or in any of the other online resources like the knowledge base, then there's HubSpot technical support. If you're on any paid tier of HubSpot, you have access to that. And you can access technical support in your HubSpot account, just up here under this little question mark. They might push you through an AI chatbot before you get to a human first, but you can get there, and it's just right here under this question mark. And so one other resource that you have at your fingertips, which is really great, is you can access the HubSpot Academy through your portal as well. And that's under your drop-down menu here, and then HubSpot Academy. And that'll bring you out to the HubSpot Academy page. The Academy offers courses that give you ideas about how to use the platform and what to use it for. I did a lot of these courses a couple of years ago when I started, and I found that they were really great for questions like, how do I improve communication between the sales and marketing teams? And the HubSpot Academy courses will give you best practices on setting up service level agreements. It'll tell you what metrics to look out for, and it'll show you the tools HubSpot has to facilitate this. It is not super technical though, so if, like me, your request was, tell me everything about workflows so that I'm a workflow expert now, you might be a little bit disappointed there. So those are some of the resources you have at hand. Now let's take a little bit of a look at some recommended practices when you're implementing changes. So as in most things, one of the first steps is to have a plan. If you're implementing changes, decide how you're going to roll them out, all at once or kind of in stages. Are you going to do a group presentation to tell your team about this? Are you going to do one-on-one training? Or are you going to start with your HubSpot champions and let the kind of new changes filter out? So another thing you can do or should do is provide additional support by making sure your users know to whom they should bring their questions. That's definitely a big one. And one way you can do this is by having office hours, and this can also encourage users to bring their questions forward by increasing your availability. Once you've made changes, what you really want to do is monitor your changes for success. So new processes may need adjustments in the real world, or users may need to be reminded until the new process catches on. So next up, we're going to talk a little bit about some foundational setup that will help with user adoption or make it easier to manage some of these things in the future. Now, one of the first things you'll want to do is organize your users into teams. This will make notifications and custom user interfaces for groups of users with similar needs a lot easier to implement. You'll also want to enable users to adjust their notifications to fit their preferences. So too many notifications can be a real turnoff to users, and too few notifications can also cause some friction by missing important data. So different users all have different preferences. Showing them where and how to manage their notifications is a good idea to empower them to do so. You can also create custom notifications via workflow where needed if you're on the pro tier or higher. And you can even send notifications to Slack if that's what your team uses most. So notifications are a really important step to user setup. And then I mentioned in the last slide about monitoring your changes for success, and a dashboard is a great way to do this. by making sure users are completing tasks, updating properties, and logging activities. You can do that via different reports in your dashboards. And you can also create dashboards to kind of enable users to monitor themselves so that they can see if they've forgotten to do anything and maybe correct it without you needing to do it for them. When you are setting up your CRM, you're also going to be creating custom properties that your team needs to track the data that's relevant to you. And now more than ever, there's more flexibility to adjust the user interface so the data and property that your team needs is at their fingertips. These last two things, some of the new custom properties and customizing the user interface, is what we're going to focus on today. So when it comes to things like creating those custom properties, I want to give you guys a reminder. That is, as the architect of your HubSpot system, you have the power to shape it to your will, but you're also responsible for meeting your users' needs and creating a system that works for them. But don't forget that you have the power in that relationship. Don't just do exactly what the users ask. So requests to create custom properties are common, but before you do it, I recommend asking some questions. So one of them is, are there other properties that already provide this information? Sometimes a lot of users aren't aware of the vast array of HubSpot default properties and what they're all used for. So maybe we just need to add some selections to a pre-existing property. Maybe we can track or get at this data in a different way, like by tracking form submissions or something that's already in HubSpot. So definitely ask a few questions before you create a property. Also ask, how will the data in this property be created? If there isn't a clear way to get the data into the property, and if the person is requesting the property says the users will totally enter the data, be a little skeptical there. The property may not get used if it doesn't have the data in it. So we talked about monitoring earlier. If after 6 months, say only 13 out of your 300 new records have a value in this custom property that the users are totally going to populate, you should maybe ask if it's still being used. Also, definitely ask how you will report on data in that property. Make sure you're setting up your property to enable the reporting that answers the questions that you're going to ask about that property. And then another good question to ask is this a one-time need? So if it is, make sure you archive it when you're done, just to prevent clutter and confusion in the future. So I selected this slide here from the HubSpot slide deck because I thought her facial expression very much said, yeah, no. So I am going to show you kind of a few of my favorite situations where I make maybe the same face at our clients. So all of these proposed setups make reporting more difficult, and they present a less streamlined user experience. So one of them is people frequently request creating 2 properties to separate data of the same type. So for example, I had a client that had 2 types of requests coming in: business attraction requests and local economic growth requests. And there were some overlapping lead sources between the 2 types of requests, but there were some lead sources that were unique to each type of request. They wanted 2 separate lead source properties so that users couldn't select the wrong option. That's kind of a good idea in spirit, but the problem is if they wanted a picture of all their lead sources across the database, you can't get that if they're split into 2 properties and half of the records have a blank in this property and half the records have a blank in the other property. Yeah, you can't really combine them into one property on the x-axis of a report. So in these cases, I recommend considering organizing it as kind of a head property, like request type, and then a lead source is kind of like a drill down property or related property. And this can also use conditional selections that we'll talk about later to make this even more efficient. But those are kind of some of the ways that I would recommend maybe approaching a request like that and doing something slightly different than the user asked. So another approach I get is creating multiple yes or no checkboxes for different selections in the same data. So one here, I had a fence company that has to locate underground infrastructure before they dig fence post holes. So they wanted one property for each type of locate because that's how it's set up in their spreadsheet now. One column with a checkbox in each. So they needed one for electrical, one for water, one for traffic signals, 2 different telecom companies. So if they wanted to report on how many jobs didn't require any locates, that's 5 properties to add to the report filter. And that's also 5 properties to clutter up your user interface, most of which will be empty most of the time. So in these cases, I recommend considering all your property types available and going with something like a multi-select or a drop-down property instead, just to kind of streamline that. And then the last one, which is my favorite one to deny, is creating free text properties. They do have their place. Free text properties are great in certain contexts, but reporting on data in them is a nightmare. If you want to get numbers on how many times a specific thing is entered, this can be very difficult. As you know, users enter things slightly differently all the time. So you want to limit selections and use a multi-select or a drop-down select when you can. And this also streamlines the user experience. Since they don't need to type their selection, they can just pick out of a list now. All right. So when you're sure that you need a custom property, there are a few newer ones and some that have had features that have been recently added that we're going to take a look at now. And the first one I have is conditional options on selection properties, which debuted late last year and I absolutely love. It is for the Pro or Enterprise tiers, but it's the ability to limit the options that are available to users in one property based on the selections made in a different property. And then the second one that I have is dependent properties. Oh, yeah, okay. I'm trying to use the HubSpot names in my slides, what it's going to show up under in your portal. So that one is conditional property logic, which is where if a user enters data in one property, it brings up other properties that you want them to enter data in. So because these are both Pro or Enterprise tier options, I'm going to hand it off to Julie to demo them for us.
All right. Thank you, Lisa. Do you want to stop sharing your screen? Oh, perfect. All right. Thanks so much for having me here, everybody. Lisa, your slide about the top 3 considerations gave me so many flashbacks. So love that. So like Lisa mentioned, I'm going to show you some ways that HubSpot can help you keep your CRM data more clean and make that data entry more efficient. Starting with the first conditional properties option that we talked about. Let's say that within our contacts, we're trying to track people's job titles and departments. So I'm going to go into the settings here in the top right, go under properties. And now I have a contact property built out to track someone's job department. And here I have options for things like engineering, marketing, sales, and finance. Now I have a second custom property built out to track job titles. And within this dropdown, I have options for marketing manager, brand manager, business development, and engineering. Now, if someone's department is set to marketing, then their job title in this case should either be marketing manager or brand manager because those both fall under that marketing umbrella. So what I can do here is use this conditional options tab to create that required logic. So I'm going to say if the controlling property is department, then I'll say if the department is equal to marketing, then only surface these 2 options because someone whose department is marketing likely wouldn't work in the engineering or business development title. So then I'll go ahead and save this. Now I will choose a contact record to update. So going under CRM and then contacts, I'll just click on one of these demo contacts here. I'll pick on Miles today, because why not? Look under view all properties. So now if I search for Miles's department and I change this to marketing and save that, watch what happens when I input his job title. Only these two marketing related options appear. So in this case, I'll tell HubSpot that Miles is a marketing manager. Now, the second option that Lisa covered was having certain properties surface when one property value is known. So to put this into regular language here, yes?
All right, I'm just going to cut it. We do have one quick question just about terminology.
Oh, yeah.
Jimena is wondering, what exactly do you mean by a drill down property, or what did Lisa mean by a drill down property?
So when I mentioned drill down property, I think I was referring to this multi-select here, how there are these two options listed.
Perfect. Thanks for clarifying. And Jimena, feel free, if you need a little extra clarification, just let us know in the chat.
Yeah, sometimes the lingo can vary on a company to company basis here. I see Lisa smiling and nodding her head at that. Cool, but thanks for asking that. So with this second example, let's talk about a scenario where if we move a deal to closed lost and mark the closed lost reason as competitor, then our team's going to want to report on which competitors we're losing these deals to. So if I go under the settings gear once again and go under properties, switching to my deal properties over here, I have this property built out for close lost reason. It's also a drop-down property, so the options are pricing, competitor, and product functionality. And then I also have a second property created here for competitor name, where I've listed the names of my totally legitimate competitors here. I'm always losing deals to Julie's evil twin. It's got to stop. Now I can create this conditional property logic in this tab here by going into this create logic button. So now I can say when close lost reason is equal to competitor, add in a dependent property. I'll choose competitor name and make this required. Then I'll go ahead and save this logic and show you what this looks like on an actual deal. So just going into any of my deal records here, I will choose this one that I lost recently. Go into the deal properties. I'll say the close lost reason is a competitor, and now we can see HubSpot saying, okay, thanks, you need to tell us which one. So I'll choose the other guys in this case. All right, do we have any questions on those demos before we want to move on? Not seeing anything in the chat, so Lisa, I can hand the screen share back to you.
All right.
And
Thanks so much,
Julie.
Julie.
Over. I'll take the chance. Hi, Jolene. Thanks for joining us.
Okay, so next on my list to talk to you guys about is calculation properties. So it's another property type that saw some upgrades last year. These calculation properties were always super handy, but now instead of being limited to the functions provided, you can create your own formula. So you can type that in here. This is also a Pro or Enterprise feature, so I don't have a live demo. I just have a screen grab for you. And this is a formula that I did to concatenate a job number that people use to search in a different system with a human readable label. And so I typed in my formula in my custom equation box. And then another thing you can do is test out what this is going to look like as you're doing your formula. So I referred to all of these different properties here, my job number, my site address, and all that. And then it gives me my sample output up here when I test the formula. So calculation properties have gotten kind of even more useful. So if you're not using them, think about using them now. A new one, also as of May 21st, the upgrade to the file property went live for all users. So now you can use properties to organize and manage your files in HubSpot. Previously, files could only get into the file property via a form submission, but you can enter it directly in the CRM now. So I'm just going to quickly show you what that looks like. So I have this file property here to upload a scope of work. And I can just go to my desktop and select where I've saved that file, upload it, and then now it's available in HubSpot for whoever needs to see it. So that's a new handy feature of file property. And then another new property is the sync property. And this one's for Pro and Enterprise tiers only, but say goodbye to those complicated workflows with some gaps here and there that keep properties in sync across different objects. There is a new property type for that. This property is great for quick view filters because you can't use associated object properties like you can in reports for those view filters. But in a sync property, you can get that data that you need onto the object that you're trying to view. So I'm going to hand it over to Julie to show you how this one works.
All right, I'm back. So those sync properties are so handy because they're going to make things more convenient to copy properties from one object to another without needing a bunch of workflows like Lisa mentioned. So let's say there's a property that typically lives on the company record, maybe something like number of employees, and we want this to live on the contact record as well, just for reporting's sake or for general convenience. We can use sync properties to make this process really automated and efficient. So first, I'm going to go under my contact property settings and hit create property. And then I'll call this one something like company number of employees. Now, in selecting the field type for this property, make sure that you pick property sync and then hit next. So when choosing the source record type, since we want to copy this over from the company record, the answer here is going to be company. And then the source record property that we're pulling from is number of employees. Now, sometimes a contact will be associated to multiple companies, and so you do have the option to get more specific here. So first, you can filter by certain association labels, and you can also do it by recency. So if you want that to pull from the first created company or the most recently created company. In this case, I'll choose the first created company and hit create. One thing to note here is that this will be a read-only property on the contact side. So if you want to make any edits, you'll have to do so from the source record, in which case would be the company record. All right, do we have any questions on that one?
So nothing on this one yet, but I believe Vanessa did have a question kind of about some of the previous features you were talking about. So I'll just give you that one. I have a deal pipeline that is used by our sales and success team for multiple business lines we offer. Some properties do not apply to some business lines, so as what Julie showed, the best way to prompt the users to fill in certain properties before they close a specific business line deal?
Yeah, so I would say that those conditional properties that we talked about earlier are designed for almost that exact use case. So would definitely recommend looking into that conditional property logic that we talked about earlier.
Awesome. Perfect. Thanks, Julie.
No problem.
All right. Thanks so much, Julie. So, everyone, we are ready, I think, to get into customizing your user's interface. So, taking a look at the look of HubSpot, which I guess would be orange steel. I don't know. Maybe Julie does. So, with all the recent changes, if you haven't done a portal overhaul for your user interface in the last 6 months, definitely think about doing one now. The first change I'll mention is the new navigation, which you may have been living with for a while, or you may have recently been dragged into kicking and screaming. With that, there is the new bookmarks feature, which allows you to bookmark any navigation menu selection in the bookmarks section. So basically, in your menu, when you hover over a selection, there's this little bookmark. If you, whoops, yep, that would do that. If you click on it in HubSpot, it will not advance you to the next slide. It will put that selection basically under this new bookmark section. So that's one of the new features of the new navigation. And then I also want to talk about customizing your user interface. So there's a public beta that you can opt into to streamline this process. And I'm gonna show you how to do that just in case you guys are not super familiar with kind of public betas and property, and product updates. So this is my record customization screen right now. I can do left sidebar, middle sidebar, right sidebar, but the unified record editor will allow us to do them all at once in one place. So to do that, I'm going to go up to my big main menu here and product updates. And this is where you find a whole host of useful stuff, some of which you can join, some of which you have to request to join. So I'm just going to search for the Unified Record Editor right now. And everyone will get it, whether they wanted to or not, on July 17th or thereabouts. But if you want it early, just search for it, join the beta. And then it usually takes a minute or two for you to actually start seeing it in your account. So if I go over to my contacts, it looks like it's set now. Okay. So it'll show the Unified Record Editor in just a minute. So here we go. So instead of left sidebar, right sidebar, everything individually, I can now edit the left sidebar, the middle, the right, all at the same time. So let's look at the left column first. So we can update properties that appear in the About This Contact card. So we can just click Edit on that and then add any new properties that we think will be important. So maybe membership notes is important. I can go ahead and add that. And then that'll show up over here in this section if I just refresh it. So now I can see membership notes is an option on the left here. Users can also customize this individually. So if I do it in the editor here, this impacts kind of the whole team that I have on this view. If I do it I can do it for just me by going to customize properties here. Then I can add any other property that I want. And this impacts only my portal, not my whole team's portal, when I do it from here. So these customizations are all on the free tier, but I am going to hand this off to Julie in just a minute to show us kind of these two, which is making saved sections and making saved sections conditional in the left sidebar. So this is a pretty neat option that I am going to get Julie to help us present.
All right, me again. Thanks, Lisa. So when we refer to the HubSpot CRM, we have this collapsible section labeled about this deal. And so we typically refer to that as a card on the left-hand sidebar. And so not only can we customize this about card, but we can also add in custom cards like Lisa mentioned. So I'm going to do this by going under the settings gear, going under objects and deals on the left-hand side, and then going into this record customization tab. Then pulling up the left sidebar, I can either create a view for a specific team, or I can customize the default view. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and edit the default. So similarly to how we can swap out the properties that show up in the About This Deal card, we can also add in new ones. So let's say that when a deal goes to closed won, that means we have a new customer on board. And so they're going to begin their relationship with either our onboarding or customer success teams. That means that those teams are going to want to see certain information so that they have context on this customer. So what I'm going to do is add in a new section on the deal record and call it services information. And then I'll add in some new properties here like annual contract value, closed won reason, and deal description. That way, when the services team takes over, they have all the information that they need. But this information is only needed for services when the deal is closed won. So let's go ahead and make this section conditional. So I'll select stage as the deal property to make it conditional based on. And for the value, I'll input closed won across any of my pipelines. Then I can go ahead and hit save up here. And now let's go into one of my deals that's in that closed won stage so we can see this in action. So since this deal is in that closed won stage, we now have all the notes that the services team is going to need to begin that productive relationship. All right, do we have any questions on this one? I see Cody plugging the product updates section, so major +1 to that.
And it looks like we are all good on the questions. So soldier on.
All right. Thanks so much, Julie, for that awesome demo. So when it comes to the right-hand column, it appears that admins have the flexibility to kind of adjust associations, add or remove association cards to list, or change what is displayed on cards. So you're probably going to want to be in the unified record editor to do this. And so you can see I can kind of move these cards around if I want to. And I can also edit these cards. So editing them will only change the name on default cards. Won't change anything on default cards. But if you want, say, for example, companies, the default card shows, sums you can, this one's the custom one I made. So on the HubSpot companies card, I can't change any of these. So let's say for my business, company domain name and phone number aren't important, and I want to show some different things on the association cards. I can create a new card here, and then I can select, I'll name it something so I don't get confused. Select which object I'm using, which is companies, and then I can add the properties that are most valuable to my team to show up in the right-hand side here. So I'm not actually going to save this card. Because I already have a custom one created that shows number of employees and type. And so we can see that difference up here. So here's my custom card showing number of employees and type. And then here's the default one that's showing domain and phone. So that's one way that we can customize the right-hand sidebar as well. But now let's take a look at the middle column, which has gotten a lot more mighty with new card types. So I used to have it on this activity tabs all the time because there wasn't much for me in overview, but these new options make the middle column really valuable. So the new card types are all available on the free tier. If you're really lucky and have enterprise, you can add new tabs to the middle column. So I do not have enterprise. I'm not that lucky, but you can see here that there's this sales tab that's been added custom, and that's available on the enterprise tier if you want to be able to do that. But back to some free updates. So I'm just going to pop over to HubSpot here. And these ones are kind of the default cards that were there before. If I scroll down, all these kind of highlights and associations, I'm going to get into my new cards here. So one of the new card types is outbound activities total. I'll show you quickly. So if you go add cards in your view editor and create card, you can see that we have all of these choices here, activity totals, all the way down to report cards and stage trackers. So I think these are fairly simple to set up. Most of them are. Some of them we'll take a look at together, but I'm going to show you them on the record first so you have an idea of what you're setting up before we look at setting any of these up. So I'll just run you through a few of these demos that I've set up. So one of them is the new activity totals card. When you set this up, you can select inbound activities or outbound activities. And this will basically show you, you can filter these ones as well by, who it's assigned to, things like that. So these ones will show you basically how many emails, calls, and meetings we've made out to this person, or how many times has this person emailed us or had connected calls with us. So that's what the activity totals card will show you. The next one I have on my list is association labels. So I set this one up as a company association label. And this will show you the association labels that define the relationship between the current object, so in this case, contacts, and between one other object that you choose when you set up the card, so in this case, company. On the free tier, you don't have custom association labels, so mine doesn't show very much, just primary company. It's the only association label I have. But if you are using custom association labels, this card will help you untangle that spiderweb of multiple associations and highlight some of the key associations. So our next new card type is association property list. And this one you can select which associated record you're looking at, and you can update properties on an associated record. So what I have here is we're on Cody's contact record, but I can update properties on companies that are associated to Cody. So here I can select which one of these companies I want to see the properties for. And then I can even update these properties right on the company record, right from the contact record here. So whenever you do make changes on these middle column cards, so when you make changes down here, HubSpot will always ask you if you want to save it. If you're making these changes in the middle column cards, it saves it immediately after you've made the change. So that is one thing to be aware of with these middle column cards. But this one is especially useful with the sync property if you have access to that. Because like Julie mentioned before, the sync property can only be updated on the record that it originates from, the object it originates from. So you can't do it from the related record. But this association card would let us kind of do that. So if I had a sync property from company syncing over to contact, I could update it right from the contact via this association property card. Next one on my list to show you is property list. So the property list is just a little pile of properties that you put into a frame here. So you can put up to 24 properties in from this object, from the contact. And this can be really useful because if you use a lot of custom properties, this left sidebar can get very, very long. So you can move some of that over to the middle column real estate here to make things a little bit easier for your users using the property list card. The stage tracker, which is our next card here, is a great visualization of where a record is in a pipeline or a life cycle stage. So you can see my life cycle stages here. I can change them from one to another. So if I pop Cody on to customer, we can see that he's moved along my life cycle stages. And when you're setting up this property, you can also select up to 4 properties that will go right here at the bottom of the card. So I can pick kind of the 4 most important properties to stage and put them here on the bottom of the card for my users as well. My next property or next new card type that I want to tell you about is statistics. So statistics are a great way to aggregate data across associated objects. You can put multiple statistics about the same associated object on one card. So here I've got number of times contacted and average number of times contacted. And then you can also refine the filters on your statistics card. So this is one that I'm going to jump into in more detail to show you. So we can see here in the right sidebar all the companies that Cody is associated with. And then using my custom association cards from earlier, we can see that Hubcap Solutions has 10 employees, partner company has 30, prospect company has 20. The average of that is 20. So why is it showing that 15 is the average number of employees for companies associated? And that's because I use the card to filter to prospect companies only, so based on type. So you can see 20 employees at this prospect type company, 10 at this. So it's going to average those two together and skip over partner company. So I'll just show you how I did that by popping into the card here. So if you go add card, create a card, and we'll pick our statistics card down here. Our first step is to select our object type. So in this one, I did companies. We can give a name to our statistic. So that will show me that'll be the kind of what was above the statistic describing it. We can choose which property we are showing the statistic for, what kind of calculation we want to do, average, sum, all that. But then there's this little manage filters section down here. And we can use this to filter kind of which exact records we want to be included in here. So what I can do is I can select type and say, only show me data from companies that have a type of prospect. So this is how we can kind of narrow down these filters to be even more specific and show us exactly the data we need. So I will just pop back to my record here and kind of show you my last card, which is, oh, sorry about the load times there, which is the report card. So you can add a single object report to the middle column here. I have this simple report that shows new contacts by source. Being on free, my report choices are a little bit limited, but this report shows all the contacts in the database. But if we pop into the card, we can filter this to show only data from the, we can filter this to show only data from the record that we're looking at. We can filter it to show only data from records associated to it. and we can filter it to show just all data across the database, so unfiltered. So we do have those options as well in this card. I have used this card. I found it really useful as a quick capacity tracker. So for the fence company that we worked for, they would enter how many days their jobs would take and on what date the job was scheduled for. And so we knew they had 3 crews running, 15 days of capacity each week. So a little single object report that showed me how many working days were scheduled in any given week would kind of show them where they had space in their schedule. So that's one possible use for this report card function. So I guess in conclusion, a bunch of new card types, some of which are super useful.
I believe the question, Lisa.
Yes, go ahead.
You said that that those report cards are single object, but that's any single object report, correct? So you could do tickets, deals, companies.
Oh, yes. I'm not sure if you can do it across. Whoops, sorry. Let me pick one. I'm not sure if you can do it across objects. So, like, I don't think I can put a. Oh, yeah, it's probably the worst type of. I don't think you can put like a deal report on a contact record. I'm not sure. Julie, maybe if you know, feel free to jump in. But I think you might be limited to the same object type that you are kind of working with. Let me just take a quick look.
I believe it's just that object, but don't quote me on that.
Okay.
Oh, statistics. That's the wrong one. Yeah, I don't see anywhere here where I can like select a different object. So I think because I'm in the contact object record editor, I can only select kind of contact reports. So yeah, not cross object yet. Maybe one day. But that is a really interesting question and maybe some really interesting use cases that might be unlocked with doing kind of cross object, single object reports on this.
Absolutely.
So,
and I'll just cut in for 2 more seconds. I will say one of my favorites is to combine the new tab, that idea that Lisa was saying that they have, on Enterprise, you can have additional tabs, and that property list report card or, card type. A lot of times I will get requests from organizations to say have like a health check or like a report card about a company or a contact. And it gets buried in the sidebar. So having a dedicated tab where you can then stash the 10 or 12 fields that kind of, are part of that, required information or part of that report card, populating that there so it's all visible, always accessible, and kind of in a logical place. It's a really common use case, I find, if you have access to both of those features.
All right. Thanks so much, Cody. I do have one more really quick thing to show you. And that is something that is kind of on the horizon for future. So I hope you're all ready to start creating custom cards now. And if you do, there's a feature that may help you manage that. And that is the CRM card library. So this one is in private beta right now. You have to request to join it. But I can show you what it kind of looks like. So when you get into your card library, you'll basically see a list of all the cards, custom cards and default cards. And then you'll be able to see basically what view it's used in, so which teams are using it. You can preview it to see what it looks like. Sorry, I don't have any data in any of these. And then you can also edit the card right from here. So this is a new feature that is in private beta. Like I say, you can get into it kind of the same way that I showed you to get the unified record editor. It's just you have to request it from HubSpot, and then whoever runs the beta, may let you in on it. So keep an eye out for that one in the future if you're using a bunch of custom cards. Hopefully you are now. Questions? I know we've been kind of answering some of the questions as we go along. If there's anything you want us to dive deeper into, please stick around. I know we're getting really close to time. If there isn't anything that you need more help on, then I hope you guys are ready to get started on a user interface overhaul today. And before we start the Q&A period at the end, I just want to mention a couple quick things, but you can start putting questions in the chat if you have any. So first of all,
for us, so we got at least one.
Oh, okay, perfect. So first of all, thank you all for coming today. And a super big thank you to our special guest, Julie, with her amazing and clear demos. I really appreciate that. And for anyone who's watching this recording in the future, thank you for taking the time to watch. Our next HubSpot user group is going to be focused on forms. It's a little bit free form right now, but we'll post more details closer to the event. If you want to get in touch with me or Cody from Hubcap Solutions, our contact info is available here on the last slide, and this slide deck will be sent out after the presentation. And
all right,
that is it. So here's your chance to ask a HubSpot pro some questions, and also me if you want.
Lisa, you're the real pro. Those middle cards were blowing my mind.
Right on.
They are so new. A new one popped up while I was making this presentation, so I'm glad that you all got to see it.
Awesome. Well, let's jump onto our question. So from Jimena, it is there a way to view our users' activity?
Oh. I'm going to say yes, kind of, but I don't know the most offhand. Julie, do you know where this one is offhand? I know in your...
I mean, I'm thinking that, would that be as simple as being under the reports, just the sales activity, kind of the pre-bagged sales activity reports might be the best place to start on that one?
Capital A activity is what you mean, not like when do they log in and all that stuff. I think some of all of that, like when they log in and things like that, you can find under your, I think it's under security. But yeah, if you mean capital A activities, like their, whatchamacallit, you know, their email people, all of that stuff, then.
Yeah, the sales analytics tools. Yeah, that's where I would go.
Here, that is the best place to do it for sure, to see it in a big team view. That is absolutely a pro feature. So I can, I'll stop sharing. Julie can show you that one better than I can.
Yeah, no problem. So if I go under reporting and data, then reports, there are a series of pre-made sales reports. So they have different categories based on pipelines and forecasting or sales outcomes, but this coach reps and teams section has a ton of data on what your reps have been doing in general, who they're reaching out to. I'll try and expand the date range a bit, hopefully get some more activity to show. But you can also get more specific with these reports. So if you just wanted to see something like meetings or tasks, we can accommodate that in here too.
Totally. And I will say, Jimena, this is always my first recommendation and introduction to folks when they are looking at team activity reporting, because we can build custom reports above and beyond what you see in this kind of library. But this generally provides a lot of inspiration. And for a lot of folks, this is basically what they're looking for, especially when you get onto the right-hand side and you can start filtering that by specific teams, specific users, specific activity types, which again goes right back up to what Lisa said at the beginning about setting up teams. Is it gets a whole lot easier to report on the sales reps or the customer service team if you organize those people into teams from the jump, because now you're just, you know, one toggle or one option away, as opposed to having to add, you know, is it this person or this person or this person or this person or this person, you know, to individual reports. So was that what you were thinking of when you were asking about activity, or were you thinking more about Lisa's see when people log in type of activity? Okay, so she was thinking about both. So maybe we just take 2 minutes and show where she can see the login history for users as well, and then we can wind ourselves down.
Sure. So that is under settings and then security. Lisa, correct me if I'm going off course here.
Nope, this is what I was feverishly doing while Cody was talking, reminding myself where that was.
Yep. So under this settings and activity tab, this is where you can see things like account login history, security activity history, if anyone's been exporting content. So that's all stored in here.
Right on. Perfect. Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us. Jimena, Leanne, thanks for being, stalwarts and hanging on right till the very end. I think I actually sent both of you guys LinkedIn invites while we were on. So apologies for the creep factor, but hopefully we'll connect and we'll talk again soon. Again, to all our reporting folks, thank you so much. Tiffany, Kami, thank you for supporting us through this one. We really appreciate your efforts, and we'll see you guys on the next HubSpot user group.
Thanks for having me. This was great.
Right on.